So let me introduce the first of our three speakers in this session. The first is from the world of big data, David Richards, co-founder and CEO of WANdisco, a man I've had the pleasure to speak to on a number of occasions. He's going to give us a bit of a global perspective, no doubt. He's always got thought-provoking things to say about the challenges on the road ahead to tech greatness. Come and take your place.
Thanks, Anna. So big data, a lot of hype in the marketplace today. And I was thinking about what to say today, and I thought I'd take a little bit of a risk and quote Dan Ariely, who's a psychology professor from Duke, who said, big data is like teenage sex. Everyone talks about it. Nobody really knows how to do it. Everyone thinks everybody else is doing it, so everyone claims they're doing it as well. And I do have two teenage children, by the way, and I hope that's not the case. But look, big data is the disruptive force in the marketplace. And let's just take a historical perspective on this. So if you go back to the 1970s, 1980s, we had these things called mainframe computers, right? Mainframes, these huge honking great big things, IBM, Digital Equipment Corporation, Tandem, and so on and so forth. And then 1990s came around, and what happened? Disruption. What happens with disruption is opportunity. New companies are created. And new companies, of course, it's all about growth. So who are those new companies? Well, we got Microsoft on the desktop, because three-tier client server, computing power moved out of the mainframe onto the desktop. We had Intel for chips. We had SAP and other ERP companies like JD Edwards, Barn, and so on in the middle. And then the database at the bottom was Oracle and Sybase. So huge, massive companies were created. And back to Michael's point, where 2/3 of the S&P are yet to be created, those companies came around in those disruptive times. And I would put it to you now, today, the big data is the disruptive force, the biggest disruptive force since those client server companies were created. And we're going to see a whole host of new companies be created today. So, for example, a company called Cloudera, many of you won't have heard of probably, just raised $1 billion as a startup company with a $4 billion valuation with less than 100 million of sales. Incredible, right? That's what happens in disruptive times. So what is big data? So big data was created, invented by this little company called Google. If you think about what Google does, right, they say, select search term from table. I mean, my cat could write that algorithm, it's so easy. But what they did is they've worked out a way to commoditize a database. Not just commoditize it, but be able to store the entire internet on commodity hardware and very simplistic software. That's what they did. So Google, the world's first ever big data company. Then what happened? Well, a team of people at Yahoo, Yahoo literally used to have 100 people in a room creating a search index. And then along came Google, disrupted the whole space. Google became the de facto search engine. We talk about Googling things. So Yahoo had to do something. They created something called Hadoop. Hadoop is an open source big data product, and it's the de facto standard in big data today. So what happened then? Well, then you got the company called Facebook. Facebook are a big data company. Amazon are a big data company. If you look at what Amazon are doing today, Amazon recently filed a patent on the way in which they can deliver products to you before you've even ordered them. So big data gives us insights. It will unlock the secrets of the world that we didn't even know about. WANdisco, my company, we recently did a deal with UCI, University of California, Irvine Medical Group. They think that they can save people's lives in a variety of different ways. So if you think about it, a heart pacemaker is actually a computer. So by collaborating with wearable information, patient records, and information that they can glean from a heart pacemaker, they can call somebody in to the hospital 3 days before cardiac arrest is about to occur. Sepsis, right? Thousands and thousands and thousands of people die from sepsis in hospitals. Sepsis occurs on a J-curve. If you're able to plot all that data, all that machine information, patient record information, wearable data, you can actually save people's lives. They think that they can treat people more effectively and save people's lives every day in hospital by using this stuff. Now, the market has an attitude to big data, and we think it's all about Big Brother and spying and PRISM and all this other stuff. It's not. It's creating huge opportunities. And I put it to you now, British companies are not participating in a meaningful way in this revolution in the marketplace today. We can create the next Oracle, the next Facebook, or the next Google, but we have to participate in this marketplace, and we must participate in this marketplace today. Thank you very much.
Well, let's go from big data to a company that says it's all about big service. Stephen Fitzpatrick, the founder and MD of OVO Energy, a reformed banker who launched a full-scale attack.
I think we've heard this one before.
A full-scale attack on the big six energy companies from your kitchen table, I'm told. That's right. He's here to tell us how he did it.
Okay, so my name's Steve Fitzpatrick, and the company I set up was called OVO Energy. I was asked to talk about disrupting energy, the energy market, but we have to be quite careful now, because if I talk to a room of entrepreneurs and business people about disrupting energy, they're going to think about new services, new technology, new business models. But if we talk to the man in the street about disrupting energy, they're going to be worried about their lights going out. So we have to be a little bit careful. I've always been quite cautious about using the word disruptive for our business. I think a lot of companies claim to be disruptive when they're really just a slight evolution. And I think it goes back to one of the things that I set out to do very early on. Every time I mentioned to somebody I'm going to set up an energy company, they say, well, why first of all? And I say, well, how? And then uniformly the next question was, what's your USP going to be? And I was at an event even 2 or 3 days ago, and we're 5 years in, and I'll introduce a little bit about what we've done in a moment, but I'm still getting asked, what's your USP? And I've got a really simple answer. We don't have a single USP. We just do lots of little things better, and that adds up to quite a big difference. But I'll come on to that in a little bit. So on to OVO Energy. Some of you have heard about it, some of you won't. We were set up in 2009, as we've just heard, around the kitchen table. So we've got some great entrepreneurial photos of a couple of us around the kitchen table, scratching our heads, poring over a business model. But the small story was, when we launched, there were only 5 of us. We launched from a barn in the Cotswolds, and only 1 of the 5 had any experience in energy, and that was, I think, 2.5 or 3 years in energy. So we came at the industry almost completely without any background knowledge of the industry. We did a lot of research, but primarily we were focused on the customer and our experiences as customers, and I think that's pretty typical of disruptive companies. So we were set up in 2009. It was a simple idea. We thought this must be able to be done better. The trigger point for me was a classic entrepreneur story. Dissatisfied with my current provider, I'd received a bill from one of the big 6, I won't name who it was, about my debt situation on my gas bill, but I knew I'd been paying them every month. So when I looked at it, it took about 10 minutes to figure it out, and it turns out I was £300 in credit on my electricity account, but £150 in arrears on my gas account. I thought, look, I have to do this. This is clearly a good opportunity to do this better. So fast forward 5 years, we now employ about 500 people. We have just over 300,000 customers. It's annual sales of about £450 million. And the fun part of this whole story is that we've doubled in size in the last 3 months. So we've added about £225 million of retail sales in the last 3 months. And that's the big thing about the energy sector. It's a big industry. It's a big industry. There's about 26.5 million households in the UK. 22.5 million of them use gas as well, so that's about 50 million energy accounts, and it's about a £30 billion a year business. And there's not that much competition, or at least there wasn't up until 4 or 5 years ago. So I'm not going to go into too much detail about the energy sector, because I think there's a lot of stuff about our industry that's not that applicable across a room full of business people. But I just thought I'd give you a few thoughts on what's helped us to be a challenger or be a disruptive brand. So I firmly believe that being a disruptive brand or a challenger doesn't mean sounding different or looking different. It means being different. And for us, that was very clearly setting out from the start what we believed in. We believed in treating people fairly, working hard, and above all, making things simple, especially simple for customers. And we've had a lot of decisions along the way when there's been some easy money on the table by stretching or blurring the lines in terms of what we believe is treating people fairly, primarily around price promotion, making offers that sound good to customers but actually don't deliver any real value. And I'm really proud to say we've always stuck to the principle that we will treat people fairly, and that means even if it doesn't always sound like the best thing for the customer, we'll do that thing in the long run. So there's a couple of points that I think have helped us, and I'll share those with you now. I've only got 2.5 minutes left. So the thing that's helped us over the last 5 years maintain our stance, or continue to be different, is to always think that sooner or later everybody will know everything. So a lot of our competitors end up getting into trouble by thinking that some decision they make in some room somewhere will stay secret for a long time, i.e. We're going to time our price rise announcement in line with some other news so nobody will notice, and we'll slip some of the finer points into the Q&A rather than the main headlines because nobody will really read that. And it works for a while, and then somebody points out a few weeks later, say, hold on a second, didn't you just say this last week? And it's like, oh, we didn't think they would find out. Or somebody leaves the company and tells a competitor, a regular whistleblower, for example. And so they assume that what they talk about in private will stay private. But in the modern world, with social media, technology, and even changes in employee behavior, whatever you discuss in private will sooner or later be public. So assume that full transparency is the order of the day, and it's going to help you stay in a good place where you can be disruptive for longer. The second one, and the thing that's been most important for us, if you want to be a challenger brand, if you want to be a disruptive force in any industry, I think it's about coming up with being different, but coming up with a different business model. And our business model is very much about understanding what is best for the customer and making that profitable for us. A lot of companies, it's a zero-sum game between how much revenue and profit they can make and how much benefit they can deliver for the customer. And the best, most disruptive companies are trying to figure out how you take what's best for your customer and make that profitable for your business. And then there are no conflicts. Then you don't have to worry about transparency, you don't have to worry about making decisions in secret and hoping people don't find out. Because you can shout loud and proud about what you're doing and why. And for us that translates into try to figure out how to make energy efficiency profitable for our business. With energy, nobody wants to use more energy. Everybody should be using less. It saves money, it's good for the environment, it helps with energy security. But most of our competitors own big power stations, they own big gas fields or have long-term contracts. So they need to sell every single unit of energy they produce. Because we're a retailer and we focus on what's best for the customer, we don't own any power stations and we buy in the wholesale market at the best price we can for our customers. So that is probably the single most important decision that you make. How do you structure your business so that what's best for your customer is also best for you? And if you can do that, then you have a long future ahead of you, disrupting markets as you go. I'm stuck to time. That's great. Thank you very much.
So from disruption of the energy markets to being somewhat unruly with video, Sarah Wood is the co-founder of the marketing technology company Unruly. She's the lady who knows a thing or two about how to get videos to go viral. So I apologise if that makes you a marked woman.
Thank you very much. Cheers. Hey everyone, it's great to be here today, and if we're talking about disruption, I think the name Unruly often terrifies people. It certainly terrifies the US border control. Whenever we go into the US and they look at our cards and they're like, Unruly? Unruly Media? Why is that your name and what are you doing here? And are you here to cause trouble? We're like, no, you could not imagine actually a more ruly company. So for those of you who don't know Unruly, we are, if you've ever seen any moonwalking ponies, any singing kitties, any roller skating babies, that's probably us. It's our technology anyway. We don't make videos, but we make the videos go famous. So we are the technology behind branded videos that are going viral across the open web. We were founded back in 2006, and this was a really disruptive moment. It was a great moment to be founding a company. The social web was just kicking off. So if you think back to 2006, things that were happening were Jack Dorsey sent his first tweet. It wasn't in an open service, but it was still under construction. Facebook was very much under construction. It was still just for university students, but it was about to be a big breakout. YouTube was still an indie when we founded, and it was a big year for Time magazine because they decided not to go with celebrities, not to go with politicians when they were choosing their person of the year, and they chose you as their person of the year because the participatory web was really kicking off. Now this was incredible for brands. It was a huge opportunity. Suddenly there was all kinds of conversations going on and the possibility for all kinds of conversations with consumers, but it was also a very scary moment for brands. Brands who were used to buying advertising advertising on TV, which was very simple, it was interruptive, nobody could talk back. Suddenly they were thinking, well, how do we connect with our consumers on the social web, on digital, where people will talk back to us, where it's fractious, it's vociferous, and unruly. And that's kind of where our name came from, this idea that there was this unruly landscape, and brands wanted to engage with it. And what we've been doing since 2006 is helping them to navigate this new digital terrain. Using our data and using our distribution platform. So we've worked now on over 3,600 campaigns. We've distributed some of the most famous campaigns I'm hoping that you'll know. So Evian Roller Babies was the most viewed ad of all time. We did that back in 2009. Most viewed ad until last year when it was overtaken by Unilever, Dove Real Beauty Sketches, a very thoughtful ad. And this is now the most viewed ad of all time. And when we talk about most viewed and most shared, we're talking about millions of shares, tens of millions, hundreds of millions of views now. So there's a massive opportunity for brands who get this right. If they can create awesome content, get it distributed well, then they really will stand out from the crowd. And that's what I've been asked to talk about today, is how to stand out from the crowd. So that's the first thing we do. We help brands stand out from the cloud. And if we've looked at big data, big services, I guess what you're also seeing is an age of big content. Huge amounts of content being created by brands, by all of us. It's constantly kind of tweeting or Facebooking our friends. And when brands are creating their content and wanting to talk to you or wanting to talk to us, they're competing with that content. They're competing with that noise. So it's more important than ever before that they create the kind of content that people want to watch and want to share. And shareability is all about, is what Unruly Media and what Unruly is all about. So what do we have in terms of making ourselves stand out from the crowd, and how have we built our own brand? The first thing is unique product, unique technology, unique data. So what we have at Unruly is the largest data set of sharing behaviour in existence, and video sharing behaviour. So Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, blogosphere, we know who's been sharing what content and where, and this dates back to 2006. This has helped us to build out a product which does the impossible. Again, very disruptive. Everyone says, oh, you can't predict a video hit. No, not possible, not possible. It's a black swan event, it's just totally unpredictable. And we say no, we say it's not acceptable just to say it's not possible. With all the big data that's available, with all the academic research that's been done, it absolutely is possible. And what we've built out is a product called ShareRank, which predicts the shareability of brands' ads in advance and helps them to improve the shareability so they can improve their return on investment of their ad spend. So the uniqueness of the product is really important to us, and that also helps us with distribution. Because we know who those super sharers are, when we seed out those videos, we can make sure we're targeting the 10% of the people who deliver 90% of the shares. Then it's about uniqueness of culture. And Unruly is it's an awesome place to work. I absolutely love it. Every day is different. And one of the things that we think is incredibly important if we're going to continue growing rapidly, and we have we're operating kind of many different territories, 12 offices, 150 staff. So we're seeing huge growth. We've just opened in Asia Pacific. One of the things we think is important to maintaining that growth is to keep up the innovation. So we're constantly thinking up new ideas, having big company-wide brainstorms, and we run a shop, an XP shop. So if those of you familiar with programming, we're an XP programming shop, and that means we do an extreme flavour of agile, constantly iterating, constantly planning, listening to market feedback, 2-week development cycles, pushing up new features every day, making sure that everybody is collaborating, getting involved. The best ideas come from all over the company. You never know where they're going to come from. So making sure that you have the kind of environment where people are confident feeding in an idea and then watch it happen, and that's really, really exciting. And then the third thing that I think will help us grow is something a little bit different from unique product, and that's unique brand. So we build our brand out, and we build our brand out globally, and as we do that, the London brand and the UK brand has become incredibly important. We see all kinds of organisations in London, and I see Russ there from Tech London Advocates, who are working really hard to put London and the UK on the map and show just how much we are growing and what an innovative business entrepreneurial economy we are. And that actually has been incredibly useful to Unruly as we've been going out into the US and Asia Pacific. And now when I start saying to people, oh, hi, we're Unruly, we're headquartered in London, they go, London? Oh, you mean Tech City? I'm like, well, yeah, I guess. So I think there's been a great job done in terms of evangelising London overseas. I think it's really important that here in London, we recognise the work that's being done, and we recognise the reputation that London is building internationally as being a blueprint for how to grow a digital economy and how to grow a digital ecosystem that the rest of the world looks to. And we're all very much part of that. And it's a real pleasure to be here today to talk with you. Thank you very much.